Today we're going to start working on families. So far we have been working with projects, which we create here. You basically click on New, create an architectural template, and create a project file that comes in with like a template project browser, right? There's sections, elevations, architectural plans, schedules, drawing sheets. But one of Revit's advantages is also to create your own custom families, and we have actually been working with them. All the objects you've been using, they are part of larger families. So, for instance, when we go back to our project, all these walls, let's say these walls, they're part of the wall family, right? So when you go to the properties, when you click on this drop-down menu, you can see all the loaded wall variations of this family. So these are all similar objects. They can be structural, they could be layered, they could be complex, and they basically have specific type features. If you go to edit type, this also tells you that it's a system family, it's part of basic wall, and its type is generic 8 inches. So if you click on family, hit the drop down, the wall families have 3 types. There are 3 types of system families. There's curtain wall, stacked wall. I haven't covered stacked wall yet. It's basically made out of different walls that are stacked on top of each other. I don't think you would need it for your project. You can just work with basic walls. Curtain walls are the ones that are made out of mullions, divisions, and glass, right? So if I switch to curtain wall, then I get my curtain wall types, and right now there are 3. I could just select one of them, click duplicate, make a variation of that type, and overwrite the properties and save it into my library as well. So I'm creating a new instance of that family. Okay? Same thing with basic wall. So I can start with something that is existing. Let's say break on CMU, and I want to duplicate this. Let's say by default it gives it another number, break on CMU2, and then if I make any type of specific changes to this, go to structure, edit, and maybe I want to take some of these layers or make them thicker. Every time I do that change, that will be saved to that type, right? So let's make some changes. For instance, let's make it 1 foot thick. You want to change the total? What do you want to change? Yes, it changes all the walls that use this type. Right? I'm gonna show you what that means in a second. So I made this into 1 foot, and I hit OK. Hit OK again. Let's say I'm going to create an instance of it here, right? So my new wall is here. Break on CMU2, and I create one here. It's out of my view window, so I'm just going to move this out a bit. There it is. Now I'm going to type in CS for create similar, make 2 more copies. Let's say these are like this. So now if I choose this one, the type property says basic wall exterior break on CMU2. This one has the same, this one has the same. They're all following the same type, right? So if I choose this guy, go to edit type, go to structure, edit, and if I change any of these features that are type specific features that make up this wall, so let's say I'm going to take out these layers, I'm going to delete this, and make this into 8 inches, hit OK. If I do apply, it's going to change the width of all the walls in my file that use this type, right? So if I hit apply, all of them have been updated because they're instances of the same family type. Okay? Same thing goes for stairs. If you create another, like stairs have types as well. So if I choose a stair, it's called assembled stairs, 7-inch max, riser, 11-inch tread. You can use this sort of basic settings or configurations as well as its run type, support type, railing type, and create another stair here. But once you override any of these properties, every other object, every other instance of every other stair instance that uses those features will be updated as well, because they are copies of the same family. Okay? Unless you click on edit type and duplicate and override those properties. So you're creating a new type, basically. You're creating a variation of it, and you're storing it as something else. Okay? They'll be pointing to two different directions. And basically, this is how Revit works. It's same thing for doors. Again, there's single flash type, and then there are type variations as well. So these are established standard dimensions and variations that are built in with this family type. So you can just change instances of it. So let's say I create the same wall. I'm going to go to door, and I'm going to put some of these. I can choose one of these and make it into a smaller version. This one into, let's say, 30 by 16. Now the difference is, the reason when I change this one and everything else doesn't change is because these are instance variations. Okay, so there are two different things you need to consider. The first thing is the type, which is single flush, and the second thing is the instances, which are these dimensions. So if I change this one to be another type, I can do that, as well as I can choose one of the variations of that type, right? And these will override only this guy, only the door that I'm overriding. It won't change all the other doors. It can only change all the other doors when I select this door, go to edit type, and maybe change its door material or frame material, and then every other door object that is using single flush will have those properties changed as well, because I'm making a change that is type specific. Okay? But the dimensions that I'm changing are all instance variations. So these are basically the copies of something, and I want to just change the dimension of it. Okay, so this is not like project-wide change. It's just creating a new variation of it. I think this would make more sense when we create our own, and you will understand how this is structured, because you basically create a template for yourself, and then you store some of basic variations of it, right? So you stretch it out a bit, call it like 3 feet unit. The other one you stretch it in a bit, like call it 2 feet, and then 1 foot. And when you load that family in the drop down, you will see them as variations, and you can iterate through them. But they will be all part of the same family that can generate those size variations. All right. So let's start looking at some of these in a custom family. So I'm going to keep my project open. Do you have a question? Yeah. Say that again?
Like if all the doors were grouped and you wanted to change them by making them something different, can you do it as a group, or do you have to ungroup them and then change the instance?
So if I want to change this door that is part of a group, every other group that has that door will be updated as well. Okay? But if this door has been used within this project and it's not part of the group, right? And I'm selecting the door, and I'm overriding the type properties of it, like the material, application, finishes, then all the doors that have that type will be changed as well. Let's give it a quick example. Let's do one. So I'm going to go to my plan axon, and I'm going to change this to shaded view, or let's do like a material view. Let's say I want to do the change to the windows. Right, so I want to change the material of the windows. Trying to find a view that will be easy to work with. So let's go here. So right now my windows have wooden sills, and maybe I want to change them to something else. I want to make these black aluminum. Okay, so I'm going to choose one of these windows. I'm using the tab key. Now all of them are using this type. It's fixed custom that I've created. This was basically, I started with an existing window, I went to edit type, I clicked on duplicate, and I entered the name for it. Right? Like I called it custom. I entered a specific height for it, as well as a specific width, and I saved it into the project as a new type. Now I can use it basically. Now all the other windows are instances of this type. All the other windows. But if I make some changes to the type, all the instances of it will be automatically updated as well, right? If I go here, edit type, let's say I have glass pane material as glass, sash material, sash. I want to change that. I want to make it into, let's say, aluminum. I want to make it into aluminum. Let's look into appearance. Use render. Metal, aluminum. Let's say this one. I was actually going to do duplicate. You can also duplicate the material. I'm going to look at these later. Aluminum dark. Let's rename it as aluminum dark. And this guy, I want to give it another color. So I want to find which one actually does override the color. So let's make it like dark grayish. Is it this one? Glass metal. Tint color. Let's give it a tint color so it's like darker. I'm going to hit apply and hit OK. Now my sash material has been overwritten as aluminum dark. I'm going to hit apply, and once I do that, all the other types that have that setting will be changed because I'm making a type property change, right? Now my fixed family type custom sash material is aluminum dark, and this is a project-wide change. If I had duplicated that window, renamed it as something else, and made that change, then only that instance would have changed because I have created a new type. Okay? We can also do that. So now you can see this is like a project-wide like change that I've made. All the windows have changed. But if I come in here, choose this guy, go to edit type, I'm going to duplicate it first, call it custom 2, just another variation. And the sash material for it, I'm going to duplicate my aluminum and call it aluminum light, or let's call it aluminum red 2. Aluminum red. This guy, let's make it reddish. Hit apply, hit OK. Hit OK. Well, changes to groups are allowed only in group edit mode. Use edit group. Well, I have to ungroup that. Well, it didn't save the change. Let's go back. I'm still using the same custom. Let's go to custom 2. Custom 2 is using it. This. The custom is using aluminum. I'm thinking if it's a problem with the group that I have. Oh, the aluminum dark is changed as well. Why is that so? Why isn't this dark? This one changes too. Let's do it this way. Let's create a new material. Let's rename this one. Call it aluminum dark. I think they're sharing something similar in the material library. That's why. Wait. Let's create new. Rename custom aluminum dark. Now this guy, let's make it like darker under generic material. and then I'm going to create a new one, rename that one, and call it custom aluminum red, and this one I'm going to make red. Right, so I created two materials. One is red, the other one is dark. Now the custom one, I wanted to use aluminum dark. When I hit apply, hit OK. Now that's what it takes. Every other thing is back to being gray. Now I'm going to choose this guy and change it from custom to custom 2. And the custom 2, I'm going to change the material, sash material, to be custom aluminum red. Well, as part of the group, I may have to ungroup it. Let's do ungroup. Custom 2, hit OK, ungroup. Well, I created a variation of it, so only this one is now red. Okay? Does that make sense? I think it's giving me an issue because it's part of a group as well. But if you did it, if you just create a wall, populated some windows on it. Okay, let's do it that way. It will be a lot simpler. So create a wall, populate some windows on it. So I go to window, I'm going to use this custom. I'm going to populate these. If I go to 3D, that wall is here. Now if I choose any of these and make it custom 2, that instance will be red, right? Because it's another type. This is red, this is custom 2, this is custom, because I made another variation of it and stored it in the file. Now if I change this guy, if I change any properties of this fixed custom, the other ones that use the same fixed custom will be changed, but not the custom 2, because it's another type. Okay? So let's look at creating our own families, family types. So I'm going to close all the unused windows. So I go to View, Close Hidden. So I just leave one view for my project. Then I'm going to go to the R button, Create New, and select Family. Right? So far we have been creating projects, but now I'm going to switch to creating family. Now, Revit comes in with a lot of different family templates, because for every specific type of architectural object, there's a different way of constructing it. So if you go to the main library, here you can see how these families are structured. So there's a family for a baluster, for a column, for a detail item, generic model, adaptive. This is what we're going to do towards the final. So we're going to look at parametric systems, lighting fixtures, generic models, plumbing, parking, profiles. Profiles you normally use for like louver systems, so that you create a profile family, you define or draw a two-dimensional profile there, and then bring it into a line-based family and extrude it, and then you create louver systems. There's also window family here, door family as well. So basically everything has like a different template, right? The easiest one to start with is the furniture, so we're going to look into that today. So open up a metric furniture family file, click open. Now this will bring a little bit different environment than we've been working with so far in Revit. In a family, if it's a hosted object, let's say like a door or window, you would also have a template wall inside the family drawn, and you will actually model your custom door or window inside of that wall, so that when you use it in project, the relationship to the wall that you have modeled in would be used. But generic models like this, like the furniture family, it just comes in with a default axis that helps you orient the object you're creating, or create kind of constraints or parameters for it. So I'm going to do a simple shelving unit, and we're going to look into how some of these systems work. The most important things to know in the families is that these two axes are kind of your origin for the family that you're creating. And normally you would place the center, or the centroid of your of the furniture you will align it to the origin of these axes, and then for the dimensions you will just offset these axes and create references. And those references are mostly the reference planes that we're going to use, so that we kind of use them to stretch our models. So I'll show you what that means. So go to Create, Reference Plane, and I'm going to just create a simple solid shape right now. I'm going to choose Pick Lines, and I'm going to define an offset, let's say 1 foot. And I have these dimensions. And I'm going to go to Annotate, Aligned. I'm going to annotate these two and make them equal. And I'm going to specify another annotation for the overall width. My units are in millimeters though. Let's see if we can change it somewhere. Project units. If you go to project units, length, make it into feet and fractional inches. So these are in inches. I had it in millimeters by default. So go to manage, project units, change the length format, and make it feet and fractional inches. Now this equality is a constraint, right? If I choose this plane, move it anywhere, the one that is kind of mirroring it would also be stretched. So this is how we are going to construct our family, so that when we change this width parameter, everything will be stretched accordingly, right? Yeah. I opened a new family, and then go to the library, open furniture, metric furniture. So I'm going to do the same thing for the horizontal one. So go to Create, Reference Plane. I did a Pick Line, and define an offset value. So define like 1 foot, and create offsets on both sides. So these are dynamic, but these are fixed, right? When you select this, it says it kind of gives you highlights that this is center, front, back axis, and it's pinned, it's locked, because we want to use these two as the kind of main axis for our furniture family. The next thing I'm going to do is go to Annotate, Aligned, do the same equality relationship here, and give another dimension here. Now when this is called flexing, so after you create something, you want to just flex it out a bit, see that these type of constraints and relationships are working in your file, and so far they are. Now I'm going to define these two dimensions as my overall width and depth for the furniture I'm creating. So I'm going to choose this guy, the top width parameter, and if you go to this label option, click on this drop down and choose add parameter, I'm going to call it shelf width. Okay. So here you can see some of the options for type parameters. So we are working with a family parameter right now. That's what we are going to work with. Shared parameters are normally used for when multiple families are nested within each other. So you can have reporting parameters to be used in another family. So like, let's say louver-based systems could be hosted by curtain walls, and you want the curtain wall family to see the louver parameters as well. So you want to change their properties to be shared parameters so that you can access them within the other family. We're going to look into those later. So just choose family parameter. And now here is a trick. If you choose this as a type parameter, every time this parameter is changed, it will be applied to all the variations, all the copies of that family. But if I choose this to be an instance parameter, then that means I can choose this value on every copy of that family, right? So leave this as type for now, but later on we're going to play with instance as well. So I'm going to keep it at type, call it shelf width, and this one, yes? Create one for the depth. So I'm going to choose this guy and choose this to be shelf depth. Hit OK. Now basically these are type properties. So if you go to the properties tab and choose family types, they will be included here. And these are basically, when you go to edit type in your projects, you see some properties there, right? So these will be added there, where you can change these dimensions. So I can enter 2 feet here and 2 feet, let's say the depth is 1 foot, and hit apply, and now they're working as well. So I'm going to hit OK. We can do the same type of preliminary settings in elevation. So we have elevation views. I'm going to go to front view. The 2 reference planes that I've created vertically, like on the sides, are visible here. The other ones will be visible on the left and right elevations. Their dimensions wouldn't be visible because they're created in the plan view, but they would work. They would work within this project, within this family we're creating. I'm going to do the one for the height. So I go to create reference plane, pick line, and let's say the height of our shelving is going to be 6 feet. So I'm going to come in here and create an offset, and then create annotation, aligned, enter an overall height for the shelf, choose it, and go to add parameter and call it shelf height. Hit OK. Okay, so I have basically three parameters set for now. And the next thing I'm going to do is go to the plan, create extrusion. So now I'm going to start modeling the furniture. Create extrusion. So it's a 3D solid object. I'm going to choose the rectangle, draw a rectangle here. Now this part is really important. After you draw this profile, you want to lock these relationships, because that's why we are creating the reference planes, right? The reference planes will be used to stretch the geometric objects that we are modeling here, and you want to constrain them to the planes that you are going to use for stretching. So I'm going to lock these relationships. I'm going to hit check, and if I go to the elevation, that solid object is resting here, and you can use these handles to stretch it. You won't be able to stretch it in this way because we have locked that relationship to the reference plane. It will ask you to remove the constraint. You don't want to do that. You're going to hit cancel. You could also use align tool. Shortcut is AL. Align. You want to align the top of your shelving unit to this plane that defines its height, and lock that relationship. Okay, so now if I turn on 3D view, I have something like this. And if I go to type properties, change any of these dimensions, this solid form should change as well. So I'm going to change the depth to be 2 feet, and then height to be, let's say, 5 feet. And when I hit apply, those changes are updated. And I'm going to go back to the old version. Depth, let's say 6 inches, and that changes, right? You want to do some flexing to make sure that all those constraint relationships you've built are working. Okay, I'll wait for you to... I'm going to keep these, let's say we're going to add 3 shelves, or yeah, let's say 3 or 4. Say what? You can hear? Is it grayed out? So that means it's like a reporting parameter. You may want to go to modify, choose the parameter, go to modify, turn it to be a type property. May have been something else, like instance reporting parameter. It will just like make it grayed out, make it into type. So I'm here, go to create reference plane. I'm going to just add a bunch of reference planes, let's say 4 of them. Go to annotate, aligned, choose these reference planes, dimension all of them, hit equal. You don't need to have another vertical dimension because we already have that, right? I'm just creating additional planes to create shelves. So now if I stretch the top plane, those equalized reference planes should stretch along with it as well. I'm going to keep working on this work plane. I'm going to go to create reference plane, pick lines, and let's enter a dimension called like 2 inches. I'm going to create offsets from these planes. So you want to offset both sides of these equalized planes in the middle so that you can enter uniform thickness for them. I'm going to do one in the middle, and I'm going to do the same on 2 sides. So I'm going to do one here, one there. I'm just creating an offset reference planes. Now come to annotate, aligned. You want to make these 2 equal. Make these 2 offsets equal. And make these 2 offsets equal. Yeah. Say that again. These? You can group these, you say, and oh, sure, you can do that. I'm just doing it this way. You may want to do it like in a tedious way first, so that like you practice these, like work with dimensions and reference planes. Technically, I don't do it this way. I do it with like a parametric array, but for that we have to do a nested family. So let's keep it simple for now. So what I'm trying to do is basically define an equal offset value for the shelves and for the thicknesses of the whole unit as well, right? So I offsetted these planes where the shelves are going to be on both sides, and then you can basically dimension these values too. So I'm going to create one here, choose that dimension, and give it another label. Call it shelf thickness, and you can reuse this parameter as well. So if you go to annotate, aligned, choose this guy, this one, and then this one, and do the same for the side offsets on both sides. Now you want to choose these new dimensions we just created and have them the same label. Have them shelf thickness. So now those dimensions would be similar. And if I stretch my shelf, they should stretch as well. Well, they're kind of going in different directions. The shelf thickness is changing, but they're all having the same change, so this should be okay. Alright, so first create these horizontal planes where the shelves are going to be. Then offset it to both sides. Make them equal. And then define an overall thickness value for it. So now go to create. We created a simple extrusion, a solid form. I'm going to go to void forms, void extrusion, and click on rectangle. I'm going to come in here, click create one here, lock that relationship. So Anthony, you're saying if I array this, if I make copies, it's going to do the same? No matter, it's not going to work when I stretch it vertically. So if I do another one here, you want to use this space in the middle, right? Because what we are doing is creating a void form in between the shelf thicknesses. So I'm going to lock these relationships, hit check. Do another one here, lock that relationship, and do one final one on top and lock that relationship. Now if I go to 3D view, this is what I have. I'm going to switch to view thin lines. If you're seeing the model too thick like this, you can go to view, select thin lines, so that everything will be kind of a normal line width. And these are the void forms that I just created, right? They will be highlighted when you go over them with the mouse cursor. And my form is right now looking like this, and what I want to do is make these forms go all the way to the back, right? So right now they're not doing that, so I'm going to go to an elevation view, like left view, find those void forms, and align the front and back faces to these reference planes we have. So I'm going to push this in, lock that relationship, and do the same here. Choose the second one, lock that relationship, do it here, lock this. Void forms. So go to create, void forms, void extrusion. Okay, once that's done, go to 3D. You should have basically a shelving unit. Now let's see if it's gonna work. I go to properties. I'm going to choose shelf thickness and lock it so that this dimension doesn't change. And I'm going to change the shelf width, so let's make it 1 foot. Hit apply. The thing stretches, right? Maintaining all these dimensional constraints, the total height, the shelf thickness, the shelf depth. Let's make shelf thickness as 1 inch. Hit apply, and everything will be thinner. I can only do these types of changes because everything has been built through reference planes and constraints and dimensional relationships, right? The form just flexes through its constrained relationships with these planes. Let's change the depth to be 1 foot. So it's kind of an IKEA type of shelf now, right? When I hit OK. So that's what I have. So go to view, tile. Let me actually close these guys first, and then I'm going to open up the reference level plan, and then do tile. So you can look at your plan, and whatever change you're making, you can see it simultaneously in 3D view as well on the side of it. Okay? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create some variations of this. I'm going to create some basic variations of it. So I'm going to come into the type properties. Let's do save this family as like a shelf, custom shelf. And here I'm going to, let's say height 6 feet, thickness 1 inch. I'm going to use these parameters and define as a new type. So I'm going to come in here, new, and call it, let's say, width 1, height 6. Give it a name. Hit OK. And I'm going to come in here. Let's say height is going to be 4 feet. Depth is 1. Shelf width is going to be 2 feet. Hit apply. Now I got that. I'm going to do new. Height, width 2. Height 4. Hit OK. Now what I want to do is make sure that these are stored. So if you go to the name here, I have this guy, and then I want to switch to the other one and make sure these parameters are not overwritten. So let's say height is 6 again. This is width is 1. Let's hit OK. Let me see. So if I switch to this, okay, so now it works. So you want to like go through them and see these changes as well that are stored. And then you can click on new. W, let's say, is going to be 3. Height is going to be 5. Hit OK. And height 5, width 3. Hit apply. Hit OK. Now I created 3 variations, and they all, like when you switch through them, you can see the dimensional changes, right? So I can also come in here and override some of these properties. So give them like different depths or thicknesses. So let's make this one thicker. Hit apply. Hit OK. So this one, hit apply. This one does this. So this basically, I'm storing some basic variations of the shelf unit I created. I'm going to hit OK. Now how do we use this? I'm going to click on load into project. This is the same as importing a Revit file, right? The way we have loaded the custom families that didn't exist, like bathtubs, fixtures, if you guys remember. I'm going to do load into project and go to any view. Let's say level 1. And it will be located under component. And I have my custom shelf here as a family. And if you click on this drop down, it comes in with its own variations we defined, right? So it's the same as the doors, the walls that we've been looking at. So I can technically come in here, create like an array of these if I want. So I'm going to choose this guy, make copies of it. And I can choose any of these and change it to be something larger. So maybe this guy is going to be, let's say, the third type. Right? If I go to 3D, I should have done this in a new file, but that's okay. Let's see where they are. Huh? Yeah, I didn't see them in 3D though. Oh, it's there, in the middle of the road. Let's go to level 1. Let's move them to the other side so that we can just look at them. right? There are my shelves. Now this is actually half of what we can do with families. Even if you create these, you can still update them, you can still modify them. So I can choose this family here, any of the instances, and I can do edit family, and it will prompt me to the family window that we had. So let's go there, and let's do some more stuff. So I'm going to go to my front elevation, and I'm going to create some panels here. So let's look into that. So I go to create, extrusion, and I'm going to, where the void form was, I'm going to create a solid form this time. So I'm going to create a rectangle and lock this relationship, hit check, and if I go to the plan, this is the solid panel that I have. So let's say we create an extrusion here. We create another offset here. So I'm going to go to reference plane, thickness 2 inches. This one I'm going to move in here, lock it, move in here, lock it, annotate aligned. This dimension is going to be the shelf thickness. Or we can define as a new parameter. Let's call it panel thickness. Hit OK. Now I'm going to switch to 3D. Now there's a solid panel there. Now what I can do is, the families are, you can do so many different parameters as well. So you could also do a material parameter where you can override the material of this panel as well as the material of the overall shelf. You can create a material parameter for that too. You could also do a visibility parameter. So let's say I have a few more of these. I'm going to go to the front, and I'm going to create another one. Let's say another extrusion here at the bottom. Lock this relationship. Go to reference level. The second one, I'm going to lock it to the same plane. Switch to 3D. Let's say I'm going to choose this guy, and I'm going to define this visible as a parameter. This visibility is basically if the panel is on or off type of parameter. Okay, and I'm going to choose this guy, and if you see this little box here, that's basically how you can create parameters through visibility and graphics. So if you click here, it prompts you to another parameter menu. You can add another parameter. Let's say top shelf, top panel. And I'm going to make this into an instance parameter this time, so that we can customize it per object. Okay, I'm going to hit OK. Hit OK as well. Do the same thing to this one. Choose this guy. Create another parameter. Call it bottom panel. Instance. Hit OK. Going to do the same thing for materials. Choose this panel. Material. Bottom material. I'm going to leave this as type parameter. Hit OK. This guy. Material. Top material. Hit OK. Now by default I can give them something, but I'm just going to load it into the project. So I go to load into project and override the existing version. Now the panels will be populated there. Actually, I'm going to do isolate element. So now my panels are included, right? What's the advantage of defining parameters for them? If I choose this guy and I come down here, now under visibility and graphics, my bottom and top panels have check marks. So I can uncheck the top panel, hit apply, and it will be gone. Because it's an instance parameter, it will just take effect for this guy only. If I left it as a type parameter, all the other variations, the top panels will be taken out because it will be a type-wide application. The same thing goes for the materials. So if I go to edit type, bottom material, click on this dotted lines, and let's go to glass. Let's define glass, hit OK, apply, OK. The bottom panel will have glass applied to this variation. Okay, I can do the same thing here. Bottom material, you can create a new material, call it red paint, give it a color, let me see if it took effect. I have to do it here. Red paint. Now that's red. Top material. You can duplicate this guy. Blue paint. Or red paint too. You can create like tints. So maybe this is a bit lighter. See, I'm doing the same mistake because I'm copying this. Every time I change this guy, it changes the other thing as well. So let's delete this, create a new one. Let's call it blue. That's blue. And bottom material is going to be red. Right? So this is blue, this is red, this is glass. So I can customize these panels as well as I can make them visible or invisible. Right? Bottom panel, invisible. I could have made as many as I want, like created one panel for each of these. Okay? So select one of these furniture you created, go to edit family, add some of these panels, create visibility parameters for them as well as material properties, material parameters. So I'll show you where to do that again. Just go to edit family. I added these solid forms, and once you add those forms, you can select them in 3D or 2D, and you want to come in here under graphics visible option. You want to click on this button and add a parameter there. So you can call it top panel visibility or a top panel. I left it as top panel. And then I did the same thing for material. Click here, add a parameter for it so that you will be able to override the material property in the file. Like an overall type property, I can just choose like let's say I want to give the shelf materials something. I can choose the shelf material, go to material, and I'm going to just create a material there. I'm not going to define it as a parameter. Let's say wood. Let's bring wood. Say birch or bamboo, cherry. Let's say apply, hit OK. Now why don't I see that? see if we can create a new one.
Open it more, it was a button on the
Huh?
outside. If you open all the way up and you have materials, there's a button on the end, and it puts it in there. Like if you open it like all the way.
Where, here?
Yeah, drag that open all the way. So you push, if you select one on the very end, so you see the little button on the end to the right. Yeah, it'll like,
Oh, yeah. Shortcut save.
I don't know if that was it, but.
Well, I don't think that was it, but I still got it here. I just need to rename it. It's just, that didn't come with the name. I'm just going to rename it as wood. And then hit apply, hit OK. Yeah, it has the wood. Just in order to see it, I need to go to realistic viewport to see the material. If I load it into the project, override the existing version, all the type variations would have that material applied to them, right? Because I'm not defining it as a parameter. I'm just making it like an overall type specific override by changing the shelf material. But the other stuff that is defined through parameters, like the visibility of these panels as well as their material, it will still be accessible to me, and I can still customize them within the project. But a change like this, it's type specific because I directly create an override here, right? I chose this object, this solid form, and gave it a material, and not a parameter but a material, so it will be constant even if you stretch this. Okay, so let's go to the project. You want the library object to come with an existing material configuration. You go to let's do the 3D. So you can go to properties. You can give the bottom material and top material here, right? So the bottom material, you can make it glass. Top material as well, glass. And hit apply. And by default, when I import them into the project, they will use that material unless I override them. Okay. The other thing Morgan asked was if you can actually apply material directly to individual surfaces. You can do that. You have to do it under modify paint option. So if you go to paint, you can create a new material here. Let's say I go to manage materials. I want to create a new material, rename it as yellow or anything else you want to create, and then give it a color. Let's say it's going to be this yellow here. Hit OK. Now I added that into my material collection. I can go to modify paint, and I want to use yellow, and then any surface I click, it will have that material, right? So I can add it to this surface. To the surface paint allows you to directly paint over a surface. Okay, and I should be able to after I'm done, I should be able to change also. If I'm not happy with the yellow, I should be able to come in here, change the color, and control that material property as well. Huh? Go to materials, create new material, rename it, call it orange paint. Go to appearance. You can keep it as generic and override the color here. Or if you want to bring in something from the library, you can turn on the assets browser where Revit keeps all of its basic materials, and while your material is chosen, you can find the material you want to use. Let's say brick, and from all the bricks you want to find something you want to use, and then you click on this button to replace the asset. Basically override the appearance of this material. And now I basically use this library object as my material. I'm going to hit OK, And then if I go to paint again, and I chose my orange paint, which has brick, I can basically use it on individual surfaces, right, as a material. Okay. Now texture alignment is another question. I think there's no direct way of doing it. If you want it, let me see. It won't be visible. It won't be done here. If you want continuous textures or changing textures, you may have to create a copy of the material and change the alignment of the texture inside the material and apply it to different surfaces. It's a bit tedious, actually. There is no direct fix for it yet, or I may have to look it up. Like that was another question that came up as well. But for now, you can use like some of the simpler materials just to get familiar with how to control materials. Materials are located under Manage Materials. These are the materials available to me in this family, and then you can either apply them directly under the type properties, because we created some type parameters here. You can apply them by default, or if you want to also use them on individual surfaces, you can do it by modify paint option, and there's a video for that as well on how that works. You literally click on the surface and apply it. Okay, that's it for today. So